oh, just be strong, just get through it, it's going to be okay. And we say all of these things in an effort to help diminish the person's pain when really they want you to sit in the pain with them.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Flipped Lifestyle Podcast. It is great to be back with you again today as we hang out with another amazing member of our Flipped Lifestyle community, one I know very well. Emily Tanner, welcome to the Flipped Lifestyle Podcast.
Thank you, Shane. I am so excited to be able to be here today.
We talk all the time on our Marco Polo app, and you're a ray of sunshine. You always bring the happiness and the joy, and it is just a beautiful experience, like hanging out and talking with you. So I'm excited that everybody like gets to know you a little bit better on the podcast. So tell everybody who's listening about you, about your background, and kind of like your online business, why you started it, and things like that.
Yeah, thank you. So, Emily Tanner, and I'm the founder of Brave Widow, which is an online coaching and community program for widows to help them rebuild a life that they love. And I spent 20 years in healthcare, more on the administrative side. Just growing up through the ranks, I was an SVP. I had thousands of employees in over 100 hospitals. And in 2021, my husband died unexpectedly. So we had 4 teenagers at home, and my life would just completely imploded, having the loss of him, living on a 40-acre property, traveling almost full time for work. And I desperately looked for information online about what do widows do? First of all, I'm too young to be a widow, right? I was
Yeah.
37, and there's so much disparate information out there. There are a lot of grief recovery programs, but I couldn't find something that was a like one-stop shop, all-in-one approach for helping people not only heal their heart, but to rebuild a life that they could love again. And so I have been following you guys since 2014. So I
Oh my
immediately knew if
goodness. That's when we started. That's literally when we started Flip Lifestyle was 2014. That is crazy. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
so I was gonna do a leadership business. It was called Grow a Leader. I had built videos, I had done all the things, but I could not find the time to consistently
Mm,
dedicate it to grow it. And so I was like, oh, some point in the future I'll do it. So I never thought it would be a widow coaching membership, but here we are
sure.
in 2024.
Yeah, I love your story because, one thing that I've always realized about online business and we all complain about social media and what it's doing to us and like all these bad negative outcomes that have come up out of the online world, right? I mean, and there are some bad things. But then like I hear stories like yours where you literally can take something that you went through and then you can go back and help people that are going through it and you can make a living. I mean, this is all, we are all trying to make a living here with our time because that's all we've got is our time. And I think it's so amazing that you're taking what was definitely like a life-changing, negative, terrible experience. But on the other side of it, you're like, wow, that could probably have been less painful, shorter. And if I had just been able to find that one-stop shop to help me get through it in the moment, and you can use the online platforms, you can use coaching, you can use memberships, you can use training and courses, and you can kind of pass down the wisdom that you gained through your experience so other people have the knowledge maybe to get the wisdom faster. And I love yours as well because in my own like mental health journey in the last like 4 or 5 years, grief has been a common theme. Not at the level, of course, I don't want to, minimize anything that you've went through, but I've recognized kind of on a meta level that like in America especially, I don't think we're taught about grief. And
Mm.
I don't think we're taught about loss. And we're always taught about the future and how to plan for the future and how to prepare for the future and how to grow and how to pick yourself up and dust yourself off and move on. And I realized about a year ago, 2 years ago, that like when some stuff happened in my life that I had no framework for grief. Nothing but get up and go to work on Monday. That was the only thing I knew about grief. Did you find that in your experience that this is kind of like a thing you were not equipped to do, like when it showed up in your life?
Oh, definitely. And even beyond that, that people around me, they weren't equipped to know how to help me.
Mm,
And I read a statistic that most widows lose 75% of their social circle in the first year. And that is something I hear over and over because we tell people, right? Like, oh, just be strong, just get through it, it's going to be okay. And we say all of these things in an effort to help diminish the person's pain when really they want you to sit in the pain with them and they want
mm,
you to validate, like, yeah, this is terrible. This is a bad thing that has happened to you. And I'm so sorry. I'm going to walk this journey with you instead
mm,
of trying to pull them up out of the grief. So I was really surprised to learn that there are actually over 40 different types of losses we all experience over our life. And
mm.
we are not taught how to process that, whether you lost a pet as a child, whether you didn't get a job you applied for, whether you experienced a divorce. But we go through all these losses and we're taught to get over it or replace it or keep our chin up and it's going to be okay. That time's going to heal all of our wounds.
It's funny. We've had two instances. It's these losses that we experience, right? Like one thing that's on my mind lately is, my son just got his permit yesterday. He's 16 years old, and Anna Joe is right behind him. They're one grade apart, right? And because of some past experiences in the past 2 to 10 years, I've started thinking like they're going to move out. And it's not far from here. Like there's going to be a day very soon, if everything goes according to this beautiful plan of their get good grades, go to college, get married, whatever it is, right? Like the life thing we all do. Like, oh my gosh, they're going to leave this house one day and they're not going to come back. And that is crazy. And like I heard like an Instagram post the other day. This guy goes, "There was a time where your mother picked you up and put you down and never picked you up again." And I think about my own experiences with like loss or change or grief. I think we also want to just put the word change on things as if it's a catch-all, and we don't want to admit that something is a loss. One of the craziest things I had seen that kind of opened my eyes to this was in 2017. We made this really conscious decision to sell a business that we had put, 3 or 4 years of really hard work into, and it was really successful and it was really awesome. And but we had kind of grown out of it a little bit. You know what I mean? And when we sold it, you would think that everything was just hunky dory, right? Do you say hunky dory where you come from? We say hunky
I'm
dory
from
in the South.
Arkansas. Of
Oh,
course
that's
we
right. That's
say
what I'm
that.
talking about. Hunky dory goes about, West Virginia down to Arkansas. All right. But like there was a loss there. Like Jocelyn actually got like depressed for a few months because it was something that had been a huge part of our life and it was gone. And we
Mm.
want, as entrepreneurs, we want to just minimize that. We just want to go through that, right? And these are friends and people who aren't equipped to even understand or help us deal with this, and then we're kind of left to deal with it alone. All we want in those situations is the pain to stop. But the more I learn about myself and grief and loss, I find that you got to feel it. You got to go
Mm.
through it, and like you have to let that loss wash over you almost to break you so that you can kind of like rebuild. Like, did you go through a similar process to that when you were coming out of this yourself?
Oh, definitely. And I think this is such perfect timing because I just interviewed someone yesterday for the podcast who is an empty nest coach and
That's
he
amazing.
helps.
That we
Yeah.
that's amazing. Can you please put me in touch with this person so I can talk to them for about, hey, I'm just staying your friend for 4 years, but I'm going to call you in 2028. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And I even asked him, I was like, what can parents do to prepare as their kids are teenagers because they go through phases, right? Like you're no longer the caretaker, you're becoming more of a coach or consultant to
Mm,
them. And as they leave the nest, there's this stigma where we feel we should be happy and excited and this should be a joyous time. And a lot of parents are just screaming on the inside because their world has changed. And especially, he says, for moms of sons, where sons are building their own families, there's this sense of I've lost my purpose or meaning, or I feel really distant. So
Mm,
there is a lot of
uh,
grief that we experience in our lives. And Dr. John Deloney, if you're familiar with his podcasts, are amazing, where when he talks about grief, he talks or relationships that have changed or been separated, how our old life is in ashes and we can't ever go back. And part of the grief and facing that is acknowledging I'll never have that life back again and
mm,
deciding that we're going to build something new. We're going to build a new relationship or a new life, and that can still be just as beautiful and wonderful. But the longer that we continue to try to turn to those ashes in that old life, the more difficult it is to reconcile some of that pain.
yeah, I'm in a bunch of I've been blessed to have really good friends that are very successful, right? And we've all at times had moments where our businesses have done less or changed, right? And that's part of the journey. As you're an entrepreneur, your business is not just up forever. That's not the way like that it goes. But the always, it's funny. The word I always hear, and I've never thought about this until you just said that, was people are like, all right, let's rebuild. Let's rebuild. But like sometimes you can't rebuild because everything's in ashes. There's no rubble left to kind of rebuild. You've got to go dig a new mine and get new materials and rebuild things all the way up from scratch. And the hard part about that is like, oh, but the last building was so good. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, that was so good.
Yes.
And then but the thing is, yeah, but the new building can be something different. It can be something new. It can be, you don't drive around a city and wish that every building looked the same. That makes no sense. You
Mhm.
build something different. You build something new. And this kind of reminds me of that. It's like, but we're so conditioned to rebuild, dust yourself
Yeah.
off, do the thing again, and then that ends up spinning your wheels for a long, long time if you do that. So I love your. What's your podcast called? Just tell everybody for anybody listening out there.
Yeah, it's called The Brave Widow Show.
Yeah, and then what was the empty nest guy's name? Do you remember his name? Seriously, I may start listening to that for real. What was that guy's name?
Yeah, he'd be great to have on your show too. His name is Jay Ramsden, and he is the empty nest coach, and he has a podcast as well. I think it's called This Empty Nest Life.
Totally introduce me to him. I'm going to have him on the Shane Sam show. I want to talk to that guy. That's what I have two podcasts. So I have the Shane Sam show, which is my show, which is all by myself. And it's more of like just where I play in a sandbox and talk to people. And this one is just totally focused on our mission to help people like you who have a mission to go out and do it. And like, I selfishly am like the Shane Sam show is where I want to talk to somebody that I don't think will actually talk to me. And I just reach out to them and tell them I have a pretty good sized podcast. And then like it's almost my just in time learning podcast where I just go ask people to do that. So I am totally going to talk to Jay. Your podcast would be super interesting too. Like, do you do this a lot on your podcast? Like, stay in this theme of grief and loss and change, but like branch out. Because sometimes I guess I would assume being a widow or a widower would be very painful to hear about all the time, no
Mm.
matter how much distance you get away from it. But like by bringing up these other things, like a person who lost their business and went out of business, a person who was an empty nester, like that. Do you do that a lot on your podcast and kind of branch out? Because that gives almost people a practice way to hear about grief and loss and recovery. Like to do that. Do you do that a lot on your podcast?
Yeah, I do quite a variety of things. So I don't often have what I'll call like industry experts on, but I will occasionally like estate planners or like this person talking about empty nesting. I had someone talk about home organizing and when to get rid of your spouse's things. And I often will have widows come on and share their story. And so we walk
Mm,
through the very real and raw version of their story. And we always end with encouragement and inspiration.
yeah.
And sometimes I have episodes where I just teach, like I'm a teacher at heart. And so I love to help people. For example, I developed my own like 4 stages of widowhood. And so I teach about how to identify where you're at, what your next step should be, and just some things that are more practical. So we do a little bit of everything
That's good.
over there, but people are really looking for even if it feels like, oh, this is a sad story at first, just the validation of somebody else, like that's my story.
Mm.
That I was there, and if they can get to a place where they can laugh and smile and talk about it without crying, then there's hope for me too.
Yeah, that's amazing. Absolutely amazing mission. And you're doing it. I mean, you've got an online presence, you're doing webinars, you've got coaching clients, you're doing the membership model. Like, have you seen a great response in that? Because I think that like the power of online business is to take it not offline, but remove the barriers of online as much as possible. Like we love communities because people get to be in like-minded like fellowship with each other. We love coaching because you get to like literally get to know anybody. Like, how have you seen you bringing your story, you bringing your stuff really make a difference in the ladies that you're working with?
I'll specifically mention one client I have been working with one on one for 6 months. When I first started talking to her, I have a few categories of things I ask them to rate so we can track progress, like confidence, relationships, routine, stress level, those sort of things that are hard to quantify. And she went from mostly twos and threes to eights and nines in every category. And, on the call, she's like, who is this person talking? I don't even know who I am anymore. I'm loving life. I have all this energy. She's seeking out, a totally different career path where she's going to launch her own coaching business. Like, it's just amazing to see how much progress people can make. I think about it in the leadership world, even. Sometimes you just need that one person who sees you, who believes in you, and who's there in your corner, and all kinds of amazing things can happen from there.
Yeah, for sure. So we've had a lot of people at Flip Lifestyle over the decade and whatever we've been in this, and like I'm always amazed. We study the people who really make it, compared and contrasted against the people who don't. And almost every single one of them say, "I just saw you guys do it, and then you saw that I could do it." And yes, they follow the blueprint. And yes, we talk about marketing and strategy, and we have to talk about those things. But almost when I was researching my book, and I went back and I went through like 14 or 15 of our podcast guests, and we reached out to them and we're checking on them to see how they were doing, and interviewed them for for the book itself. Um, and almost nobody said, that sales page training, that was really what got me over the hump. If I had never, and people say like, wow, that helped my conversions or whatever, some little nugget of goodness, that added a percentage point to their success. But it was almost always like, gosh, I almost quit one time, and I logged into the forums and I realized there were hundreds of other people not quitting. Or I realized that, I posted a message and Shane actually answered me. You know what I'm saying? And it was, or told me not to quit. I've had a bunch of people where I've literally in public in the forums, they're like, I think I'm going to give up. This isn't working. And I'm like, no, you're not. Check your inbox. Then I'll send them a message and be like, what are you doing? You're like a month away from this working. Why are you quitting now? I know it's hard, but don't quit. And it's just that little, that's what really gets people over the. People don't want to hear that though. They don't want to hear it's the mindset. They don't want to hear it's the mental game. They want to hear, yeah, but there's got to be something I'm missing. There's some secret sauce or something like that. And of course, marketers sell it that way, but it's just belief and an example, I think, is what makes the most things happen. So where are you at right now in your business, and where do you want to go in the future? Like what I just love your mission. I just want thousands of widows out there to find you right when they need you most, because that would just change lives and families on a scale. If you have 1,000 widows you help over the next 5 years or whatever, like it would just be absolutely amazing for their communities, their families, their lives, everything. So, like, where are you now? And then where do you want to go, and how can we help you get there?
Okay. So, year to date revenue wise, I'm about 27,000 for the year.
Okay.
Although let's say 16,000 of that was a couple of 6 month one-on-one 8K packages. So
Okay.
that's, a little over half. And this past year, I was a little all over the place with what I was offering. I had tried pitching the membership multiple different ways. And of course, I didn't have a lot of confidence. So I'm sure my copy wasn't that great. I wasn't making tons of offers. It was just a lot of figuring it out. I worked with a coach to help me. And her philosophy was, well, let's get you some confidence with one-on-one. Let's, start pitching these prices. And I think part of my struggle and also part of what helps me is I had a really amazing corporate career. I made a wonderful salary. And so I'm not always afraid to ask for some of these bigger numbers or for some of
Sure.
these bigger packages at times. But I also get discouraged because I feel like I'm just not moving as fast as I want. So I sold some one-on-one coaching at different prices. I sold a mastermind, a 6-month program. We're halfway through for 3,000. Sold a couple of those. I've sold a dating masterclass series for a few $100s. And so working in my coaching with, you and
Mud
Jocelyn.
on the wall is what we've
Yeah.
been doing in 2024. That you're just
Yeah.
slinging mud.
I'm like,
You know what I'm saying? Whatever direction we can throw it, it doesn't matter. Some of it's on the ceiling. It doesn't matter, right?
yeah. Well, like you said, it's the mindset. I have the mindset this is going to work. I just haven't figured it out yet. Like I have to
Yeah.
keep trying until I figure out exactly how to sell it. So, working with you guys, I did a 3-day challenge the first week of November, and I was able to sell 14 memberships off
There
of
we go.
that.
There we go.
I did offer one-on-one monthly coaching for 6 months. So I meet with them once a month for 6 months. And that has really helped me get in the weeds of like, what are they struggling with? And they want the guidance and the direction. So I did another live event. It was a different one that I've done before last week or earlier this week.
Live
And
in
I did it
person or live online? What do you mean?
online,
But
like a
online.
Zoom
Gotcha.
webinar. Yeah.
Yep.
Um, I had maybe 6 or 8 people that were there. Half of them are already members. So I haven't sold anything off of that, but I am doing the 3-day challenge again in December.
Yeah.
And I've had several people sign up for that. So I'll be doing that. And then my goal is to try to sell the membership without all the one-on-one connections to see if that's like the differentiator.
Yeah.
But
This was kind of like a beta group. Like, with a beta group, you almost sell people a membership price, but you give them so much touch value because now you get to talk. Okay, 14 people raised their hands and said, "This is awesome. There's some monthly value here. There's a community here. There's something to go." But by working with those first clients one on one, you get the information to be like, "Okay, who are you? Why did you join?" And the crazy thing about your business, which I've always found interesting, we always tell people if you can sell one, you can sell 101. If you find an offer that converts and more than one person buys it, there have to be other people out there that want it. But like it seems like every time you've thrown mud on the wall, someone's bought something from you, right? This is not an either or situation. You've sold memberships, you've sold courses, you've sold coaching. Like there's clearly a lot of people out there that are like, wait a minute, that's kind of what I'm looking for. I've got to go check this out and see what's going on. But we want to grow the membership because if we had 200 or 300 people, widows in this community, then anything you sold on the back end of that would just be gravy, right? It would just create that like recurring revenue. So what have you learned so far from the 14 people that joined your membership? Because I think that's the main focus. Have you talked to them about like why did you join? Why are you here? Like, is there any common threads? Like, what are you seeing in your beta group when you're doing these one-on-one meetings with people?
yeah, so one of the biggest reasons is I'm faith-based, and a lot of people appreciate that. They don't find that very often. Another reason is because I'm helping them beyond just the grief recovery part. So a lot of times people have gone to therapy, they have gone to grief groups, but they feel stuck. That's very much a common theme of I've done all this work, I still feel stuck. What's wrong with me? Why
Yeah.
can't I seem to move forward?
When you
Um,
say when you say you're going beyond the grief, like a lot of the programs that you've seen are just focused on getting past the grief, but then you do other things like, all right, now let's go get a date. Now let's go do other things. So that's where you're saying yours goes above and beyond what all these other programs. You have a differentiator in that way. Is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, so I view, I do have part of the program is healing your heart and processing grief because some people haven't done that or they're still struggling.
Sure.
So in Brave Widow, we view that as like the foundation of what we're going to build this new life on. So if we haven't done that work, we start there. And then we start working on building your confidence, building your social circle,
Mm,
Going out and making new friends, trying new things for the first time, which is very messy because you don't know who you are and what you like and what you want, and you can't even envision the future because you don't know what you like anymore.
right.
So I guide them through this more of a to Z process of here's your exact next step of what you should focus on and what will help support you. We learn about like people are breaking family generational traumas, people are learning attachment styles and communication and
You're
relationships.
speaking
And
my language. You're
I
speaking my
know it's so
language.
good. I
So
love it.
Jocelyn and I just so we've been doing a lot of these tools are so powerful and people just don't even understand it. Like it's like, I learned about we learned about somatic practice where you feel in your body, you know what I'm saying, and you get out of your head a little bit. That was like a tool that chipped away from us. Then we learned about attachment styles. Like I'm anxious attachment and Jocelyn is avoidant attachment. So and then we're like, oh, that's why we have conflict, right? And like I love how you're bringing all these different things like into this. It's not just what are the four stages of grief? You know what I'm saying? Like there's four stages of grief, and as long as you get through that, your life's going to be perfect again, right? No,
Right.
not really true. It's not really. I was watching do you watch Frasier? You ever remember the show Frasier?
I
You remember that
do.
show?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a new one out, and it was hilarious the other day because one of Frasier's friends wrote a paper. He's like a professor at Harvard now, and he wrote he was trying to he was trying to disprove the four state. Was it four stages? Is that how many there are? Something like
Five.
that.
Yeah.
Five. The five stages of grief. He was trying to disprove it, but then his paper got rejected, and then in the episode he went through the five stages of grief like perfectly. Right? It was hysterical the way they set it all up. And but like all these things, man, are it's not just this one. If you just do this, everything will be okay. You if you understand all these things better, you get and it works the same way for entrepreneurship. You've got to expand out and study all these different things if you're going to make your sales go up. You can't
Yeah.
just not do it, All right, so faith-based is a differentiator. I wrote down grief plus because everyone else is like gets you over the grief, but like you're doing these other things. What else have you learned from these people?
They really want direct feedback and guidance on what they should do next.
Hmm. Like a personalized experience, not just this scientific catch-all of a process. Not just
Yeah.
12 steps to recovery. They want something, but
Right.
there's even though their thing is probably not as specific as they think, they need to be seen in that respect, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I really tried curating like the four stages of widowhood so that people could start to self-identify where do I think I'm at and why if I'm trying to work on stage 3 but I haven't even processed my grief, why do I constantly feel like I'm being brought down to my knees? Well, it's
Mm.
because we have like this hierarchical pyramid and we got to work on the base. We got to work on the foundation first and then we move on to the next one.
What
So
are the four stages of widowhood? Grief, I assume, is the first one.
so the first
Or the
one I put is devastation, where you're living
mm,
in survival mode,
okay,
and you're just literally in survival mode. Your body is in fight or flight, and you are just trying not to drown.
okay,
And the second one would be desperation, and that's maintenance mode, where people would realize, okay, I have a new routine. It sucks, and I hate this routine, but it is what it is, and
yep.
I'm afraid that this is it. This is the rest of my life, is this new horrible life that I don't like. The third stage is where a lot of people start to get stuck because I call it the exploration, which is more of a discovery mode. So you're trying to figure out who you are and what you like and what you might want your life to look like in the future. And it's like walking a path through a wooded trail where you can't see the corner around the corner. You can't see the destination. You want to believe you can enjoy life again, but there's no guarantee. And so it's really a journey of faith that by trying these all weird, different, and awkward things and going to new places, that I'm going to find something that makes my heart sing.
Mm,
And then the fourth is the fun one. So exploration starts to get fun when we get past all the awkwardness. But the fourth is creation, and that's manifestation mode. So that's where we
nice.
have a clarity around what we want for the future, and we start to bring that forward into our reality today.
Um, this will make sense. This question here in a minute, but like, what would you call the period before devastation, before the event? You know what I'm saying? Like, what would like is there a stability there or something? And like because what I'm trying to think about is this is awesome, by the way. I've never heard anything like that. That is a brilliant framework that you've
Thank
like
you.
put together. Like it's the words you picked there were very deliberate, right? But it's almost like your life goes through these phases, you know what I'm saying? And like I guess before that was maybe stability or like
Routine.
yeah, like some kind of routine, like safety maybe or something like that. Like there was a normalcy like before that because it's like whenever we're doing any kind of work, it's like you remember things from the past, you want things for the future. You know what I'm saying? And it's like you're not going to get back what you lost, but you can get back to that phase or something. It's almost like there's a after creation. There's a that it's that same place you were before the devastation. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's an interesting concept that you got there. It's really cool. So like
Yeah.
to me, and this is what we've kind of talked about this, outside of this podcast, it's how do you get more people to know you and how do you get more people to like recognize you? um are you focusing in your content and in your marketing on the faith-based access? Are you hammering that now that you've heard people say that's what it's about? Are you focusing on the grief plus and a lots of the plus stuff? Are you really selling, and are we thinking about the membership as a like how can we add personalization there? And these four phases, like I honestly would be talking I would probably, if I was thinking about your podcast, like if I wanted, I would if I had four podcasts a month, the first one would be about devastation and I would talk about that, and then the second one would be
Mhm.
about, now how you do that we can get different guests and talk about different stories. Then the second one will be desperation, third one exploration and creation, and you're just constantly rolling through these phases over and over and over and over again in a prolific way. Your social media posts: Monday's devastation, Tuesday's desperation, exploration and creation. Then on those, you're like, all right, devastation, something face based about it, right? Like exploration, something face based around it. Like, are you pulling this stuff into your messaging first right now?
I think the grief plus stuff, I do try to really lean into that a lot. The faith based, I haven't as much. I have thought of myself as like Dave Ramsey, where it's kind of sprinkled in there, but it's not so like, it's not the forefront. Like, this is a faith based financial coaching.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I think because people have said they really enjoy that aspect, I do have opportunity to lean into that
For
more.
sure. For sure. And I'm sure that was a huge part. And faith was probably a huge part of your recovery process through this. So, like, it's
Yes.
not going to be difficult to share stories where faith really intervened with you in all four of these phases, right? Where different things were inspiring you and doing those things. And then the membership itself, like, we talked about this. You're like, hey, I did something crazy, Shane. I offered everyone coaching with the membership. And I'm like, wait, what? We did not talk about this. This sounds like a last minute addition to the webinar we've been talking about for a month. And I was like, but that's cool, man. Beta group. Let's do it. Let's figure it out. Let's see what happens. But like, the word personalized, doesn't have to mean one-on-one coaching. You know what I'm saying? Like, it could be something different. Like, do you emphasize the personal nature in your, on your sales pages and your webinars? Like, using that word personalized, or was this like, I mean, the one-on-one coaching was personalized and you made the group coaching personalized, but there's a lot of opportunity there. You can personalize things without killing yourself and taking too much time. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Yeah. Have you
Yeah,
focused
I
on that?
think I have what I have focused more so on is maybe the way I'm framing it of I will help you discover where you are and the exact next step that you need to take. I have reiterated that a lot. As
Yeah.
I'm getting people onboarded, what I'm observing is that, most of my audience is like 40s to 60s. So I know people think widows like 80s and 90s, but the reality is like 40s to 60s is really the majority of my peeps. And but some of these people still have a lot of technology challenges. So, it's like, oh, I didn't get my email from Kajabi. Oh, what's Voxer? How do I download an app? Like, I think some of
Yeah.
it's just overwhelm either with the technology or overwhelm because there is so much mentally and emotionally going on for them that they want someone to say, I've got you. Let me do like an inventory of where you are. And then, like, these are the next two things I would focus on over this month. So I have been trying to think about the best way to do that. Maybe the next step is just I'll do a one time onboarding evaluation to kind of get them up and going as like a warm transfer. I
Yeah.
have been trying to think about creative ways to do that.
Yeah. I mean, the simplest way always is just email. I mean, people can email you, and that's the easiest thing that people don't have to learn. You know what I'm saying? But even
That's true.
that's hard sometimes because people are like, I didn't see your emails. And I'm like, did you check spam? Like, because this is a normal thing. We need to check spam, right? There also is, there's ways to get past the learning curve. Sometimes, also too, it might be just niching down to, we can't assume every widow 40 to 60 is not able to download an app, right? Like that can be just, this is how it works, and this is how we do that. I wonder if you could, well, let's talk about marketing first, okay? So like we've already talked about this, like we know the challenge worked regardless of the offer. And it's just a commitment to do that every 2 weeks. I mean, you can eventually go to monthly, but like it's just that big commitment to doing that every 2 weeks and refining the offer a little bit every time. That's the main thing. You're so personable and so good on camera, not just on Zoom here, but like you're on Marco Polo with me all the time. So it's like I just wish you would double down on, I've got to go on every podcast that talks about any kind of grief or anything like this, like ever, because I made a commitment one year to do like 2 podcasts a week, period. And my podcast grew, my business grew, like everything just grew because I didn't say what podcast I wanted to be on. I just said, we're going to find me 2 podcasts to guest on a week. I know I'm good on camera. I know I can talk into a microphone. I know I can explain this correctly. So I've just got to get in front of as many people as possible. Now there's strategies for that, like, Dream 100, reach outs, like hiring a service to get you booked on shows, whether they like it or not, right? Because they're looking for guests. But that could like really, really blow up like everything you're doing too. Because I just feel like if you put you in front of a camera or a microphone, anyone listening that's going through the struggle is going to at least reach out for some kind of like information. And then
Yeah.
like refining that message, you are faith based. I hear it. You don't sprinkle it in. Like I know your faith, and I know who you are, and I know what you are. And I think in a time like what your customer is going through, like they're looking for that, man. And they need to see that like bright and shining on everything that you do. Now, you don't have to be like hit them over the head with the Bible, right? But
Right.
totally like scriptures on your sales page and telling those individual stories of when faith showed up in your life. Like those are the stories we might want to like focus more on.
I have more recently started sending out in my copy saying things like, God still has plans for you. He's calling you to a life of more.
Sure. And that's
You
totally
know,
authentic and natural knowing you.
yeah,
That's totally authentic and natural.
yeah. And then we also wrestle with the challenge of I feel angry at God and angry at my situation, but I also feel guilty for like I have this
Mm.
weird relationship with God now, right? Because he let this happen. So that's always something I think I could pull in a little bit more too. That people are just they're ashamed to say those words.
And like, what about ads? Are you running ad? Because man, when you have a webinar that converts, an offer that converts, gosh, sometimes the investment is just like, I'm gonna push in on black and throw the roulette reel. It's just like see like what's happening. And like,
I'm ready. I'm ready to do more with ads. I have done Facebook ads, some in the past, and that was one thing I wanted to ask you is, Facebook and Instagram, is that, still a good place to invest in and having some of those?
I would think so for yours, especially Facebook, because Facebook skews older. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I mean, and we've talked about this in our coaching too, is like there's a lot of groups already for widows and building, your own group up or something like. You can even run ads to that. I meant to tell you this the other day. Like the Facebook group that you set up, Brave Widow, like where you want your own Facebook. It's like I'm sick of asking these Facebook groups if I can post, right? Like and you like, well, build your own. Like you can run ads directly to groups, and just
Okay.
grow from that layer of the bottom up. Like you can just like, man, if I could just buy 1,000 people in my Facebook group, right? Like, hey, because all you're doing is sharing a link to something else on an ad. That's all an ad is. It's look at my thing, click the link to my thing. But like you
Yeah.
could build that Facebook group probably not in a huge expensive way. Tracking becomes hard because you don't know which one of those people convert. But like if the goal is, can I invest in a community on Facebook where I know there's 40 to 60-year-old, people hanging out? Like 40 to 60-year-old has to be the Facebook age because my daughter is 14 and we have a family Facebook group and my son's in it and he knows what's going on, right? When we're eating dinner and when we're meeting after church, when we're whatever we're doing, he knows, right? And then like Anna never knows what's going on. She is solely clueless about anything that's happening. Anna, you have every other social media account. Get a Facebook account. Let's set it up and let's put you in this Facebook group. She goes, no, that's for old people. And I'm like, how old's old? And she told me this line goes like 30. So I'm like, I'm getting close to double old. Okay. So, but you can grow your group with ads. I mean, we could grow a community there and it probably wouldn't be like super expensive.
Yeah, and I think that's a great idea. I think I got really discouraged with ads earlier this year because they took away the ability to target widows as a demographic. So I
Mm.
was like, what do I do? Do I just target all women at a certain
Yeah,
age
yeah, yeah.
or I have to get
So
creative? Yeah.
but the people I know that do a lot of Facebook ads have become more and more general in their targeting anyway,
Okay.
because at some point everyone realized the AI and the algorithm is smarter than me picking my own targets. Like even though it feels specific, I'm going to target widows on Facebook, right? That feels specific. But you don't know what they're feeling or what they're doing, but the algorithm does. Like what are they searching for? What does their algorithm is all their content showing up as grief? Are they happy or are they whatever? And like by just getting a big block and as people react to an ad, the algorithm knows who else to show it to better than you do, right? Doesn't mean you don't watch it, doesn't mean you don't test it, doesn't mean you don't split test content and pictures and all those things, but the targeting, it just knows. Like I did an ad last
Yes.
week for our Better Than Black Friday sale, and I went into the targeting and I just picked the smart audience or whatever it's called for this particular ad campaign because I'm like Facebook knows who follows me, Facebook knows who interacts with my content, and it knows similar people to those people. And after a day or two, sales start coming in because you just like
Mm,
see that happening because it just let the algorithm work. Your job is to it's more like a campfire and you're just kind of poking it and blowing on it
okay.
to get a little fire going, throw another log on, poke it and move it. That's what it feels like more now. I remember when I first started running ads like 10 years ago and it was like, all right, I want all people that are between 30 and 32 and they live in this suburb. And it was like you were picking all of these little, and they also follow Tony Robbins and they also follow Russell Brunson. And they also, like, you were just trying to make these audiences out of people. And it was so hard to even think if you were in the ballpark, you know? But now a lot of it is just like the algorithm itself. And I'm no ad expert by far. Like I like to say we dabble in ads. I've got 10 years of organic content follow me around like Hansel and Gretel breadcrumbs, right? So like
Exactly.
I'm not saying I'm so smart at this, but but from the most people I know that are smart at this, that's kind of how they're operating, unless it has some kind of like specific need. So I wonder,
Okay.
just kind of, let's just think generally here. We just need more people in this situation to know about you. Everything you sell has converted. And I don't think you get rid of coaching. I think you keep that on top of the membership level too, because it's always going to keep you close. You can always charge high ticket. But a strategy of getting you in front of other people, which podcast swaps, you have a weapon in your back pocket. You've got a podcast. So when you reach out to people like this guy that ran the empty nest thing, you can be, hey, instead of saying, will you be on my podcast? I'd love to have you on my podcast and I'd love to be on yours. So, right. So we're just adding an ask as we build our own content
Yeah.
base. And then maybe we can try some ads and grow the Facebook group and just get a bunch of those people in this Facebook group where you have control over what's being said.
Okay.
Like if you had 1,000 people in that Facebook group, forget a webinar. You could just do a Facebook Live and they'd all be there. You know what I'm saying? Like you wouldn't have to
Right.
like worry about it anymore. We could focus like your time and resources on things that actually have a chance to get you discovered, and then we see if we can add on to it, and a commitment to do the challenge every couple weeks, maybe every third week or something like that, so we can
Yeah.
keep refining that process out. Does that sound good? Does that sound like it makes
Yeah,
sense?
think that sounds good. And I have been posting in Facebook groups my helpful posts, and
Sure.
every time I do, I get 5 or 6 friend requests or people DMing
Yeah.
me. So that has been really helpful strategy you gave me too.
Oh, you know what? The first thing you should ask those people is when they message, because we talked about an engagement strategy, like a follow up, like maybe giving them a freebie. Maybe we could just tell them to join your Facebook group because they're already in Facebook groups. Like
Oh, yeah.
that's the first message we should send to people is, oh, that's awesome. Thanks for reaching out. Added you as a friend. I also have this Facebook group called Brave Widows.
Okay.
And like leaning into that, like every ask, every contact is join the group, join the group, join the group, join the group. And now they're interacting in your pond instead of like somebody. We're going to go
Mhm.
get their fish and put them in a basket, and we're going to carry them over and we're going to dump them into your pond.
I love it.
Then you got your own fish. All right, one more time, Emily, just tell everybody where they can find you online. I'm sure that there's people out there in our audience that are definitely going through this situation. And where can they find you to learn more and get more help?
Yeah, they can go to bravewidow.com. And for anyone that they may know who's newly widowed or in those first few months, I have a ton of amazing free resources for someone who's newly widowed. And you can find that all on the website there. So bravewidow.com is the best place to go.
All right, y'all, that wraps up my interview with an amazing Flip Lifestyle member, Emily Tanner. She's absolutely incredible. Check out Brave Widow online if you know somebody that's going through that situation or you're going through that situation. She is really, really, really good, if you can't tell, at what she does. And man, I just love hearing stories like that about people just taking the worst possible scenario from their past and just turning it into the best possible scenario for someone else who's going through that in the present so that both of you can have a better future. And really, that's what entrepreneurship is all about. That's what the power of the internet and online business lets us do. And it also lets us make a great living in our wheelhouse, in our expertise, whenever we do it, man. So if you want to find out more about online business, maybe you want to start something, you got an idea for a business like Emily's or different, head over to fliplifestyle.com. Check out the Flip Lifestyle membership. We also do have one-on-one coaching. Emily is one of our one-on-one coaching clients. We have an app called Marco Polo that we use to coach our clients. You can literally message me every single day about whatever you need in your business. And if you go to fliplifestyle.com, you can learn about our regular Flip Lifestyle membership, and you can also learn about our Membership Plus program, where you can get that one-on-one personalized support that you need to make your dream a reality, to go out and make a living and help other people in what you do. That's all the time we have for this Flip Lifestyle podcast. Thank you all so much for listening. My name is Shane Sams. Until next time, get out there, take action, and do whatever it takes for as long as it takes. Don't you be giving up now early. Got to make it through the other side. I forgot what I was saying. Whatever it takes for as long as it takes. We're going to leave that in, Kevin. Leave that in. Whatever it takes for as long as it takes to flip your life. We'll see you next time.